Layla's hand froze on the champagne flute when she heard his voice cut through the ballroom like a blade through silk. Move. The single word carried such absolute authority that every conversation in the vicinity died instantly. She didn't need to turn around to know who had spoken. Everyone in the room knew that voice. Cristiano Bellucci didn't raise his tone. He never had to. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she felt him move closer, the scent of expensive cologne and danger reaching her before he did. She'd spent the last 20 minutes being systematically humiliated by women dripping in diamonds, their cruel laughter still echoing in her ears. "Get out, you don't belong here," Mrs. Whitmore had said, loud enough for half the ballroom to hear, her ice-blue eyes raking over Layla's simple black server uniform with unconcealed disgust. Now the most powerful man in the room, possibly the entire East Coast, was standing directly behind her. "I said move," Cristiano repeated, but this time Layla realized with a shock that sent electricity down her spine. He wasn't talking to her. He was talking to the woman who'd just told her to leave. What had she done to catch the attention of a man like Cristiano Bellucci? And more importantly, what would it cost her? If you want to discover how this story began and what happened after this moment that changed everything, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Each view helps bring more stories like this one to life. Now, let's go back to where it all started. 3 days earlier, Layla Morgan had been invisible. That was exactly how she preferred it. When she worked events for Hamilton Catering Services, invisible meant safe. Invisible meant she could serve champagne to Manhattan's elite, collect her paycheck, and get home to her son before midnight. Invisible meant no one looked too closely at the exhaustion permanently etched beneath her dark brown eyes, or noticed how her uniform hung a little looser each month as she skipped meals to make sure Isaiah ate. "Table 12 needs refreshments," Karen, the event coordinator, snapped without looking up from her clipboard. "And for God's sake, smile. These people are paying for an experience." Layla bit back a response and lifted her tray. Smile. Always smile. Even when your feet ached from your second job cleaning offices from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Even when your son's school had called again about the overdue lunch account. Even when the electricity bill sat unopened in your purse because you already knew you couldn't pay it. She moved through the Whitmore Estates ballroom like water, refilling glasses and clearing plates. The chandeliers overhead cost more than she'd earn in 5 years. The flower arrangements probably cost more than her monthly rent. The women's jewelry could have paid for Isaiah's college education 3 times over. "Excuse me," a sharp voice cut through her thoughts. "You, girl." Layla turned to find Eleanor Whitmore, tonight's hostess, looking at her as if she'd found something unpleasant on her shoe. Mrs. Whitmore was 60, surgically enhanced, and draped in enough diamonds to blind someone. Her eyes were the cold blue of Arctic ice. "Yes, ma'am." Layla kept her voice neutral, professional. "Is there a reason you're standing in the middle of my ballroom doing nothing?" Mrs. Whitmore's voice carried, drawing attention from nearby guests. "If you have time to stand around, perhaps you have too many staff here tonight." "I was just—" Layla began, but Mrs. Whitmore had already turned away, dismissing her mid-sentence. Heat crept up Layla's neck, but she forced it down. "Don't react. Don't give them the satisfaction." She'd dealt with worse than entitled socialites. She'd survived worse. The evening dragged on. Layla's feet screamed in her second-hand heels. Her lower back throbbed from hours of standing. But she kept her smile fixed, her movements graceful, her presence invisible, until everything changed. It happened at 9:47 p.m. Layla would remember the exact time later because she'd glanced at the ornate clock on the wall, calculating how many more hours until her shift ended. The ballroom doors opened. Conversation didn't just pause. It stopped. Completely. As if someone had pressed a cosmic mute button on the entire room. Layla looked up from the tray she was arranging and felt the air leave her lungs. The man who entered didn't walk. He commanded space. Tall, easily over 6 feet, with the kind of build that came from discipline, not gym vanity. His black suit was so perfectly tailored, it might have been painted on. And even from across the room, Layla could see it cost more than her car. Dark hair swept back from a face that was almost severe in its masculine beauty. Strong jaw, sharp cheekbones, and eyes so dark they looked black in the chandelier light. But it wasn't his looks that made every person in that room hold their breath. It was the power that radiated from him like heat from asphalt in summer. It was the way 2 men in similar suits flanked him their eyes constantly scanning the room. It was the way Eleanor Whitmore, who'd been holding court like a queen 5 seconds ago, went pale and actually trembled. "Mr. Bellucci," Eleanor breathed, rushing forward. "We weren't expecting— That is, what an honor, Mrs. Whitmore." His voice was deep, accented with the musical lilt of Italian underneath American English. He didn't smile. "I was in the area. I thought I'd pay my respects." Everyone in the room knew that was a lie. Men like Cristiano Bellucci didn't just happen to be in the area. If he was here, there was a reason. Layla tried to look away, tried to return to her invisible state, but her traitorous eyes kept drifting back to him. There was something magnetic about the way he moved, the way everyone unconsciously created a circle of space around him, like planets orbiting the sun. He was danger personified. She could feel it in her bones, in the way her survival instincts screamed at her to leave the room. She was reaching for an empty glass on a nearby table when it happened. Her hand knocked against the stem. The glass tipped. Time seemed to slow as she watched it fall, knowing exactly where it would land, directly on the train of Mrs. Whitmore's Valentino gown. The crash of crystal on marble was deafening in the hushed room. Red wine spread across white fabric like blood. "Are you stupid, clumsy?" Eleanor Whitmore's voice rose to a shriek. She whirled on Layla, her face contorted with rage. "Do you have any idea what you've just done? This dress costs more than you make in a year." "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Whitmore, Layla dropped to her knees, grabbing napkins, trying desperately to blot the stain. "Don't touch it." Eleanor slapped her hands away. "You've done enough damage. Get out. Get out of my home right now." Layla stood slowly, her legs shaking. Around her she could feel the weight of dozens of eyes, most filled with contempt, some with pity, none with kindness. "Mrs. Whitmore, please, I need this job. You should have thought of that before you ruined a $15,000 gown." Eleanor's voice dripped with venom. "You don't belong here. You never did. People like you—" She waved a dismissive hand. "You're only here to serve, and you can't even do that properly." The words hit like physical blows. Layla felt her chest tighten, felt the familiar burn of tears she absolutely would not shed. Not here. Not in front of these people. "I understand," she said quietly, setting down her tray with hands that only trembled slightly. She'd been humiliated before. She'd survived it. She'd survived this. She turned toward the service entrance, her vision blurring slightly, her mind already racing ahead to how she'd explain to Isaiah why Mommy lost another job, how they'd pay next month's rent. Interesting. The single word, spoken in that dark, accented voice, stopped her mid-step. Cristiano Bellucci was looking directly at her, not through her, like most wealthy people did, not at her uniform or her skin or her circumstances, at her, into her eyes, as if he could see past the exhaustion and the fear to something underneath. "Mr. Bellucci," Eleanor's voice had gone from rage to sickly sweet anxiety in an instant. "I assure you, this incident—" "You're firing her," he said, still looking at Layla. It wasn't a question. "Well, yes, of course. She's clearly incompetent. For an accident." His eyes finally moved from Layla to Eleanor, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "A single accident, and you're prepared to take away her livelihood." The dress," Eleanor stammered, "can be replaced." Cristiano's gaze swept the room, and Layla watched as every person he looked at seemed to shrink. "Everything here can be replaced. The crystal, the wine, the dress, all of it is just things." He moved then, crossing the space between them with fluid grace. Up close, he was even more overwhelming, taller, broader, his presence suffocating in its intensity. Layla's heart pounded so hard she was certain everyone could hear it. "What's your name?" he asked her directly. "Layla," she managed, her voice barely a whisper. "Layla Morgan." "Layla Morgan." He repeated it, as if testing how it felt in his mouth. "You work for Hamilton Catering?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. "Not anymore." He turned to Eleanor. "Send me the bill for your dress, and for the crystal. Layla Morgan now works for me." The room erupted in barely suppressed gasps. Layla's mind went blank. What?" For the first time, something that might have been amusement flickered in those dark eyes. "You need employment. I need someone I can trust. It seems like a fair exchange." "But you don't even know me," she protested, her survival instinct screaming that this was too good to be true, that men like him didn't help women like her without expecting something in return. "I know enough." He pulled a business card from his jacket and pressed it into her hand. His fingers were warm, his touch sending an unexpected jolt through her. "Be at this address tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Don't be late." He turned to leave, his security detail moving with him. "Wait," Layla called out, before she could stop herself. "Why? Why would you do this?" Cristiano paused in the doorway and looked back at her over his shoulder. In the chandelier light, his face was all sharp angles and shadows. "Because, Layla Morgan," he said quietly, "I know what it's like to be told you don't belong somewhere. The difference is—" His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "I made them regret saying it." Then he was gone, leaving Layla standing in the middle of a silent ballroom, clutching a business card that would change her entire life, with absolutely no idea what she'd just agreed to. Layla stood outside the building on 5th Avenue at 6:45 a.m., 15 minutes early, because she'd learned long ago that punctuality was the one advantage poor people could afford to give themselves. The building was stunning, all glass and steel reaching toward the sky. The lobby, visible through the windows, looked like something from a magazine, with marble floors and modern art that probably cost more than most people's houses. She'd almost convinced herself not to come. Had spent all night pacing her tiny apartment, looking at Isaiah sleeping peacefully in his bed, thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. Men like Cristiano Bellucci didn't help women like her out of kindness. There was always a price. But then she'd opened her wallet and counted the $43 that had to last until Friday, looked at the electricity shut-off notice, remembered the way Mrs. Whitmore had looked at her like she was garbage. "Miss Morgan," Layla jumped. A man in a dark suit stood beside her, one of the security guards from last night. Up close, she could see he was younger than she'd thought, maybe 30, with kind eyes. "I'm Marco," he said with a slight Italian accent. "Mr. Bellucci sent me to escort you up." The elevator opened directly into a penthouse that made Layla's breath catch. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park. The morning sun poured in, illuminating a space that was both luxurious and lived in. Dark leather furniture, rich wood, tasteful art, but also books scattered on tables, a coffee mug left on the counter, a jacket draped over a chair. "Miss Morgan." Cristiano emerged from what looked like a home office, and Layla's heart did that stupid flutter thing again. In last night's formal setting, he'd been intimidating. Here in dark jeans and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms corded with muscle and marked with a tattoo she couldn't quite make out, he was devastating. "You came," he said, and she couldn't tell if he'd expected her to or not. "You offered me a job. I need a job." Layla kept her voice steady. "What exactly would I be doing?" "Direct. I appreciate that." Cristiano moved to the kitchen. "Coffee?" Yes, thank you." She watched as he prepared 2 cups with practiced efficiency. When he handed her one, their fingers brushed and she felt that jolt of electricity again. "I need a personal assistant," he said, leaning against the counter. "Someone to manage my schedule, handle correspondence, organize meetings. Someone discreet who understands that what happens in my world stays in my world." "Your world being?" Layla let the question hang. His lips curved slightly. "I run several businesses. Import-export primarily. Some people call me a businessman, some use other terms. Your Mafia," Layla said flatly. Marco, standing by the elevator, tensed, but Cristiano just laughed. A real laugh that transformed his entire face. "I prefer businessman with traditional values," he said. "But yes, my family has certain connections. If that's a problem—" "I have a son," Layla interrupted. "Isaiah. He's 6 years old. He's the only thing that matters to me. Whatever this job is, whatever you expect from me, it can't put him in danger." Cristiano's expression shifted, became something softer. "Tell me about him." "He's 6. Just started 1st grade. Smart, funny, obsessed with dinosaurs." Layla lifted her chin. "His father left before he was born. We don't need him. We're fine on our own. I can see that." Cristiano set down his coffee cup. "Layla, I'm going to be honest with you. My world is dangerous. People want to kill me. They want to destroy everything I've built. Anyone close to me becomes a target. Then why offer me this job? Because last night, when Eleanor Whitmore was berating you, you didn't cry. You didn't beg. You accepted your punishment with dignity, even though you'd done nothing wrong except exist in a space people like her think belongs only to them." He moved closer. Do you know what I see when I look at you? Layla shook her head. Strength. Real strength. Not the performative kind. You're a survivor, Layla Morgan. And I need survivors around me, not sycophants. And my son, we'll have the best security in the city. You have my word. He pushed back, giving her space. The salary is $150,000 a year. Health insurance, housing allowance. Your son's education paid for. In return, I need your discretion, your loyalty, and your time. Layla's head spun. $150,000. That was more than she'd made in the last 4 years combined. What's the catch? Smart woman. Cristiano walked to the windows. The catch is that my world will consume yours. The hours are long and unpredictable. You'll see things that might frighten you. You'll meet people who would kill you without hesitation if they thought it would hurt me. That's a lot to ask from a stranger. We won't be strangers for long. Something in his eyes made her pulse race. So what's it going to be, Layla? Back to minimum wage and wondering which bill you can't pay this month? Or take a chance on the devil you've just met? She thought of Isaiah's face when she told him they couldn't afford new sneakers, even though his old ones had holes. Thought of the landlord's threats about eviction. When do I start? Cristiano's smile was slow and devastating. You already have. The next 3 hours passed in a blur. Marco brought her lunch while Cristiano explained her duties. She'd manage his calendar, screen his calls, coordinate with his various business managers. Why me? She finally asked. You could hire anyone. Someone with experience. Last night, the wine glass. It didn't slip because you were clumsy. Cristiano's voice went cold. Eleanor Whitmore's assistant bumped your elbow. Deliberately. I saw it. She engineered your humiliation because Mrs. Whitmore doesn't like having staff who are too attractive working her events. Layla's mind raced back. Had someone bumped her? These people are vipers, Layla. They smile while sliding knives between your ribs. You survived them with your dignity intact. That tells me everything I need to know. Before Layla could respond, Marco appeared in the doorway. Sir, we have a situation. Cristiano's entire demeanor shifted. The relatively relaxed man she'd been talking to vanished, replaced by something harder, colder. What kind of situation? The Russians. They hit one of our warehouses in Queens. Layla's blood went cold. This was real. This was actually real. Cristiano's jaw tightened. Get the car. He turned to Layla, his voice gentling slightly. Marco will take you home. We'll start officially tomorrow. Is this what it's like? People dying? He moved toward her, and for a moment she thought he might touch her face, but his hand stopped just short. Yes, this is my world. Last chance, Layla. Walk away now, and I'll make sure you're compensated for your time today. No hard feelings. She should say yes. Should take whatever money he offered and run. Should protect Isaiah from this insanity. But she looked into Cristiano Bellucci's dark eyes and saw something she hadn't expected. Loneliness. Bone-deep, aching loneliness hidden behind all that power and danger. I'll see you tomorrow, she said quietly. 7 a.m. I won't be late. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or respect. He nodded once, then was gone. Layla stood alone in the penthouse, her heart racing, and wondered what on earth she'd just gotten herself into. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Isaiah's school lunch account has been paid through the end of the year. CB. She stared at the message. Something warm and terrifying blooming in her chest. People were dying. Cristiano Bellucci was handling a crisis that involved warehouses and Russians and violence, but he'd taken 30 seconds to pay her son's lunch account. Who was this man? And why did some traitorous part of her already want to find out? 2 weeks into working for Cristiano Bellucci, Layla learned 3 crucial things. First, the man never slept. She'd arrive at 7 a.m. to find him already on his 3rd espresso, and he'd still be making calls at midnight. Second, his import-export business was exactly what everyone suspected. She didn't ask for details. He didn't offer them. Third, and most dangerous of all, she was starting to care about him. It happened in small moments. The way he remembered she took her coffee with cream and honey. How he'd rearranged his entire schedule without comment when she mentioned Isaiah's parent-teacher conference. The evening he'd found her crying in his office bathroom after a brutal call with her mother and had simply sat beside her in silence until she could breathe again. You're different than I expected, she'd told him that night. Disappointed? He'd asked. Something vulnerable in his voice. No, just confused. Now sitting in the back of his Mercedes as Marco drove them to some mysterious meeting, Layla studied Cristiano's profile. He'd been tense all morning, his jaw tight. "Are you going to tell me what's wrong?" she finally asked. "There's a charity gala at the plaza tonight, very exclusive. I need you to come with me." "As your assistant?" "As my date." He turned to look at her directly. "There's someone there I need to impress. Showing up alone makes me look weak. Showing up with someone like you." "Someone like me?" Layla's voice went cold. "You mean someone black, someone to prove you're not racist before you negotiate your—" "Someone beautiful," Cristiano interrupted, his voice sharp. "Someone real, not another society clone. Someone who might actually make those vipers wonder if I'm capable of genuine human emotion." The compliment stole her breath. "I don't have anything appropriate to wear." "Already handled." He gestured to a garment bag. "If you hate it, we'll find something else. But Layla," his voice softened, "I need you tonight, not just as my assistant, as someone I trust." How was she supposed to say no to that? 4 hours later, Layla stood in Cristiano's guest room, staring at herself in the mirror and barely recognizing the woman looking back. The dress was midnight blue silk that hugged every curve. The neckline was elegant, the back cut low. Paired with heels that made her legs look endless and diamond earrings that Cristiano had presented with a casual, "They belong to my mother," she looked like she belonged in that world. Almost. "Layla?" Cristiano's voice came from the other side of the door. "Come in," she called. The door opened. Cristiano stepped inside, dressed in a tuxedo, and stopped dead. For a long moment, he just stared. "Say something," Layla whispered. "Mio Dio," he breathed. "You're stunning." Heat crept up her neck. "The dress is beautiful." "The dress is fabric," he moved closer. "You make it beautiful." They were standing too close. She could smell his cologne, see the faint shadow of stubble on his jaw, feel the heat radiating from his body. "Cristiano," she began. His hand came up, gentle, cradling her face with a tenderness that made her knees weak. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. "I know I shouldn't," he murmured. "I know this is wrong. You work for me. You have a son. You deserve better than a man like me." "Then don't," Layla whispered even as she swayed toward him. "I'm trying." His voice was rough. "But Layla, you make me want to be someone different, someone worthy of the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching." "How do I look at you?" "Like I'm human," he said simply. "Like I'm more than just the monster everyone expects me to be." Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. The moment broke. He stepped back. "We should go," he said, his voice professional again. But as he turned, Layla caught his hand. "For what it's worth," she said quietly, "I've never thought you were a monster." His fingers tightened around hers. Then he lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that sent electricity racing through her. "Then you haven't been paying attention," he murmured. The plaza was everything Layla had imagined. A sea of designer gowns, glittering jewelry, and carefully practiced smiles hiding razor-sharp warfare. Cristiano's hand rested on the small of her back as they entered, warm through the silk. She could feel people staring. "They're looking at us," she murmured. "Let them look." His voice held possession that should have bothered her, but instead sent heat pooling in her stomach. "They're wondering who you are, what you mean to me." "What do I mean to you?" He looked down at her. "More than you should." Before she could process that, a voice cut through the crowd. "Cristiano, what a surprise!" The woman who approached was stunning in that calculated, expensive way, blonde, thin, with ice-blue eyes that raked over Layla with undisguised contempt. "Vivian." Cristiano's voice went cold. "Still married to Harrison?" "For now." Vivian's smile was sharp. "And who is this? Your latest assistant?" The pause before assistant made it clear what she actually meant. "This is Layla Morgan," Cristiano said, his hand tightening possessively on Layla's waist. "My date? How progressive of you." Vivian's eyes lingered on Layla's face, clearly cataloguing and dismissing her. "Tell me, dear, how did you two meet?" Layla felt the trap closing. Anything she said would be used against her. But before she could respond, Cristiano stepped forward, putting himself between Layla and Vivian. "We met when I was reminded that real beauty, the kind that comes from strength and grace rather than surgery and spite, still exists in this world." His voice was silk over steel. "Now if you'll excuse us." He guided Layla away, leaving Vivian's mouth hanging open. "Did you just—" Layla couldn't help the laugh that bubbled up. Did you just insult her plastic surgery to her face? She earned it. Cristiano's lips curved into a genuine smile. Besides, everything I said was true. The evening proceeded in a blur of introductions and subtle negotiations, but it was the small moments that struck her, the way he automatically positioned himself between her and anyone he didn't trust, how he kept touching her, a hand at her waist, fingers brushing her arm, the way his eyes would find hers across the room, checking on her. "You're good at this," she murmured. "I've had practice." Something dark flickered across his face. "My father believed in assimilation. Dress like them, talk like them, make them forget what you really are until it's too late. And what are you really?" He looked at her, intensity in his gaze making her breath catch. A man who's never wanted something he can't have until now. Before she could ask what he meant, chaos erupted. It happened fast. Glass shattered. People scattered. A man in a server's uniform pulled a gun. "Bellucci!" he shouted, raising the weapon. Time slowed. Layla saw the gun, saw it point at Cristiano. She moved without thinking, threw herself in front of him just as the shot fired. The impact spun her around. Pain exploded in her shoulder. The world tilted. Strong arms caught her before she hit the ground. "Layla! Layla!" Cristiano's voice, raw with panic, was the last thing she heard before darkness claimed her. Layla woke to the smell of antiseptic and the steady beep of machines. Hospital. "Easy." Cristiano's voice came from beside her, rough from exhaustion. "Don't try to move yet." She turned her head and found him sitting in a chair pulled close to her bed. He looked terrible. His tuxedo was gone, replaced by dark slacks and a blood-stained white shirt. His hair was disheveled, his eyes red-rimmed. "Isaiah," she managed, "is fine. Safe. He doesn't know anything except that Mommy had an accident." Cristiano's hand found hers, gripping it like a lifeline. "What the hell were you thinking?" "He was going to shoot you," Layla said. "I couldn't." "So you took the bullet yourself?" His voice cracked. "You could have died, Layla." "But I didn't." She tried to smile. "How bad is it?" "Through and through, clean. You'll recover fully." He stopped, his jaw working. "Layla, no one has ever done something like that for me before. Cared enough to try?" She held his gaze. "Isaiah needs me." "Which means I need you. You're paying for his school, his security, our apartment. If something happened to you, all of that would disappear." Something shifted in Cristiano's expression. Hurt, maybe. "So this is about money." "Don't be stupid," Layla snapped. "Yes, the money matters. I'd be a liar if I said it didn't. But that's not why I jumped in front of that gun." "Then why?" "Because in the 3 seconds I had to think, the only thought in my head was, not him. Anyone but him." Tears spilled down her cheeks, because somewhere between your stupid expensive coffee and your rare smiles, and the way you remembered that Isaiah likes dinosaurs, I started caring about you. Really caring. Cristiano moved back to her bedside. He sat on the edge of her bed, careful of her injured shoulder, and cupped her face with both hands. "Layla Morgan," he said, his accent thickening with emotion, "you are the bravest, most stubborn, most beautiful woman I have ever met. And I am completely, irrevocably in love with you." The world stopped. "You can't be," she whispered. "Why not?" "Because I'm nobody. Because this is insane. Because we've known each other less than a month." He kissed her. It was gentle, reverent. Nothing like the demanding kisses she'd imagined. His lips moved against hers like a prayer. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. "I knew the moment you stood in that ballroom with wine on your uniform and your head held high," he murmured. "Every moment with you just confirmed what I already knew. You're mine, Layla. You've been mine since the first time our eyes met." "That's possessive and true." He pulled back to look at her. "I won't apologize for how I feel, but I will promise you this. I will never force you into anything. I will spend every day trying to be the man you deserve." The door burst open. Marco rushed in, his face pale. "Sir, we have a problem." Cristiano stood immediately. "What kind of problem?" Marco's eyes flicked to Layla. "It's about Miss Morgan, the shooter. Before my men took him down, he said he wasn't aiming for you, sir. He was aiming for her." The room spun. "What? Why, because someone wants to hurt me by taking away what I care about." Cristiano's voice had gone deadly calm. "And somehow, they already know that's you." "Who?" "The Volkov family. Russians." Cristiano turned to Marco. "Double security on her apartment. I want men on Isaiah 24/7 and move them both. No, Layla interrupted. Both men looked at her. I won't live in hiding. I won't teach Isaiah that we run from threats. Layla, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. She struggled to sit up. You just told me you love me. You told me I'm brave and stubborn. So let me be those things. Cristiano stared at her, then laughed. A real, genuine laugh. You're going to be the death of me, he said, but his eyes were warm. Hopefully not literally. Layla managed a weak smile. Here's the compromise. He sat beside her. You and Isaiah move into my penthouse. It's a fortress. Security, cameras, safe rooms. You'll have your own space. But I need to know you're safe. Layla thought about her son, about keeping him safe. Okay, she agreed, but on one condition. Name it. You tell me the truth, all of it. What you do, who your enemies are. What I'm really getting into. She squeezed his hand. No more secrets. Cristiano's expression turned grave. The truth isn't pretty. I didn't think it would be. All right. When you're healed, when you're strong enough, I'll tell you everything. Everything? Everything. He lifted her hand to his lips. I promise you, tesoro. No more secrets between us. The Italian endearment made her heart flutter. What happens now? Now? Cristiano's expression hardened. Now I find out who ordered that hit, and I make them regret ever learning your name. The cold fury in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, she felt protected. And after that? He looked at her, fury melting into something tender. After that, we figure out how to build a life together. You, me, and Isaiah. If that's what you want. I want that, Layla heard herself say. God help me. I want that. Cristiano smiled and kissed her again. For just a moment, there was only Layla and Cristiano and the fragile, dangerous beginning of something that might actually be love. The penthouse had been transformed. Layla stood in the doorway of what used to be Cristiano's guest room 2 days later and stared in wonder. Isaiah's new bedroom had dinosaur-themed bedding, shelves filling with books and toys, and a window seat overlooking Central Park. You did all this? She asked, turning to find Cristiano watching her. I wanted Isaiah to feel like this was his home. He moved into the space. I know I can't replace his father. I'm not trying to, but I want him to feel safe here. Wanted. The earnestness in his voice broke something in her chest. He's going to love it, she whispered. And you? Cristiano moved closer. Your room is across the hall, completely separate. Your space. Layla kissed him, cutting off his rambling. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Cristiano rested his forehead against hers. Dio, woman, he breathed. You're going to kill me. Fair trade for taking a bullet, she quipped, and felt him tense. Don't joke about that. When I saw you fall, when I saw the blood... He stopped. Nothing has ever terrified me the way that moment did. She pulled back to look at his face, seeing raw vulnerability there. I'm okay, she said softly. I'm right here. For now. He caught her hand. But someone wants to hurt you until I find out who... You will find out, and then they'll regret it. Us. I like the sound of that. 3 hours later, Marco brought Isaiah directly from school with a full security detail. Isaiah had taken the increased security with remarkable calm, probably because Marco had introduced himself as a professional bodyguard and let him see the cool gadgets. Mom, Isaiah whispered later, curled against her side on the couch. Is Mr. Bellucci your boyfriend? Layla's breath caught. Why do you ask? He looks at you like you're the most important thing in the whole world, out of the mouths of children. Would that be okay with you? Layla asked carefully. If he was? Isaiah considered this seriously. Does he make you happy? Yes. Then it's okay. Isaiah snuggled closer. Plus, he has a really cool house. Layla laughed despite everything. Cristiano, who'd been on his phone across the room, ended his call and crossed to them. He crouched down to Isaiah's level. Hey, champ. I know today was scary, but I want you to know nothing is going to happen to you or your mom. I promise. Because you're like a superhero? Isaiah asked with 6-year-old earnestness. Cristiano's expression softened. Something like that. But even superheroes need sidekicks. Think you can help me keep your mom safe? Isaiah nodded seriously. I'll protect her. Good man. Cristiano ruffled his hair. Why don't you go check out your new room? Marco will show you. As Isaiah raced off, Layla stood and moved to Cristiano's side. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything. He's a good kid." Cristiano watched Isaiah disappear. "He deserves better than to be caught up in my mess. We all deserve better than the hand we're dealt. But we play it anyway. Is that what we're doing?" "No." She turned to face him. "I think we're actively choosing this, whatever this is." "Definitely insane," Cristiano agreed. He pulled her close, careful of her healing shoulder. "But I'm choosing you too, Layla. You and Isaiah. Whatever comes next, we face it together." "Together," she echoed and kissed him. When they broke apart, Cristiano's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression hardened. "What is it?" "Marco's team identified the man who tried to shoot you. He works for the Volkov family." "Russians!" His jaw tightened. "They're trying to start a war by taking what matters to me. What are you going to do?" "End this. Tonight, once and for all." He kissed her hard and fast. "Stay here. Keep Isaiah safe. Trust me to come back to you. I love you, Layla Morgan. Remember that." Then he was gone, Marco and 6 other men following. Layla stood in the silent penthouse and prayed to a God she wasn't sure she believed in, that the man she'd fallen for would come back alive. 4 hours passed like 4 years. Layla put Isaiah to bed, read him 3 stories and promised everything would be okay. Then she paced, jumping at every sound, checking her phone constantly. At 2 a.m., she finally heard the elevator. She raced to the entry, stopping short when she saw Cristiano. He was alive, but his knuckles were bloodied, his shirt torn, and there was a cut above his eyebrow, still bleeding. "Are you okay?" They both said it simultaneously. Cristiano crossed to her, pulling her into his arms and just holding her. She felt him shaking slightly. "It's done," he murmured into her hair. "The Volkovs won't be a problem anymore." Layla pulled back to look at his face. "I trust you did what you had to do." Something shifted in his expression, relief, gratitude. "I did, and now you and Isaiah are safe. I made sure of it." "What does that mean?" "It means I called a summit. All the families. Made it very clear that you and Isaiah are under my protection. Anyone who touches you answers to me." The dark implication hung between them. "I made an example." Layla should have been horrified. Instead, she felt safe for the first time in 6 years. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me for that." He cupped her face. "I'm not a good man, Layla. I've done terrible things. Tonight I did terrible things. But I would do them 1,000 times over to keep you safe. I know." She kissed him softly. "I know exactly who you are, Cristiano Bellucci, and I love you anyway." He kissed her back, deeper, more desperate. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes were dark with desire and emotion. "Marry me," he said. Layla laughed, thinking he was joking, but his expression didn't change. "You're serious." "Completely." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Inside was a ring, a simple platinum band with a single diamond. "I bought this 2 weeks ago. Been carrying it around waiting for the right moment, but tonight taught me something. There is no right moment. There's only now. So, Layla Morgan, will you marry me?" She should say no. This was insane. They'd known each other barely a month, but when she looked into his eyes, she saw her future. Saw Isaiah growing up safe and loved. Saw herself waking up next to this complicated, dangerous, surprisingly tender man. "Yes," she heard herself say. "Yes, I'll marry you." Cristiano's smile was blinding. He slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her again. "I promise you," he murmured against her lips, "I will spend every day trying to deserve you." "You already do," Layla said, meaning it. They stood there in the pre-dawn darkness, holding each other, 2 broken people who'd found something whole in their brokenness. Tomorrow, they would start building a life together, dangerous, complicated, and absolutely worth fighting for. Layla stood on the terrace of their home in the Hamptons, watching Isaiah, now 9 years old, chase Cristiano around the lawn while their daughter, Sophia, laughed from her father's arms. 3 years since that night in the ballroom. 3 years since Cristiano had sat beside her and changed everything. The road hadn't been easy. There had been threats, close calls, moments when she'd questioned everything. But there had also been joy, their wedding in a small Italian chapel. Sophia's birth 18 months ago, Isaiah calling Cristiano Dad for the first time. "Mommy!" Isaiah ran up, breathless. "Dad says we can get pizza if you say yes." "Does he now?" Layla raised an eyebrow at her husband, who was walking toward them with Sophia babbling in his arms. "I was merely informing our son of the democratic process," Cristiano said innocently, but his eyes were dancing. "Democracy where you bribe the kids." Layla shook her head, but she was smiling. "It's called strategy, amore." He kissed her softly, Sophia reaching for her mother. Layla took their daughter, settling her on her hip. Sophia had Cristiano's dark hair and eyes, but her smile was pure Layla. "You're happy?" Cristiano asked quietly. Layla looked at her family, her son thriving in his private school, learning 3 languages, her daughter, who would grow up knowing safety and love, her husband who had slowly moved most of his operations legitimate and built them a life as normal as possible. "I'm happy," she said truthfully. "Are you?" Cristiano looked at Isaiah running across the lawn, at Sophia reaching for his face with chubby hands, at Layla standing in the golden afternoon light. "I never knew I could be this happy," he admitted. "Never knew this kind of life was possible for someone like me." "Someone like you," Layla repeated, kissing his cheek, "is exactly the kind of person who deserves this." "I love you, Layla Bellucci," he murmured. "I love you too." She leaned against him. "Even when you bribe them with pizza." His laugh rumbled through his chest. "Especially then." As the sun set over the water, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, Layla thought back to that terrified woman standing in a ballroom, being told she didn't belong. She'd found where she belonged. Not in the world of wealth and power, though she'd learned to navigate it. Not in the dangerous world of her husband's business, though she'd learned to survive it. She belonged here, in this moment, with this family, with this love that had grown from impossible circumstances into something real and lasting and true, and that was worth everything. This story has come to an end. If it touched your heart in any way, leave your like and share it with someone who also enjoys emotional and thrilling stories. New stories are coming soon. Until next time.